Well, I'm in another exciting place. This time it is hydrangeas, and here we have two incredible people, Vania and Roger, and I cannot believe the greenness of these leaves. I mean, they are the deepest green, and they feel like leather. That's got to be a sign of good growth.
Healthy plants.
Well, who do you grow the hydrangeas for?
90% of our product is for export, and mostly exporting to the States and Asia.
Did you hear that? The States and Asia. So if you're in America or you're in Asia, you are going to be able to get these. Keep going, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, so we do a tiny bit to local, but because we're aiming for the big, bold product, it mostly goes export. And also we tailor our growing so that we get the pinks so that can be exported as well, whereas a lot of local product ends up being blue because it's grown in the ground.
And people don't like blue?
No, not really.
It's just not fashionable at the moment.
Not fashionable at the moment, but
haven't they heard of blue blood?
Probably because it's been around for a while, so they want something different, and the pink seems to be the thing. So.
Pink, but this isn't pink. This is red.
This is red, yes.
And is this new, Roger?
Oh, it's been around a few years. Yes.
And it starts when it's new growth with this amazing green at the tips. And will that last?
They can be picked with good treatment, but we generally pick a lot more open than that. Yes.
So when you're picking them, how do you know when they're going to be ready to pick?
We wait till the little true flowers that are seen in amongst the
It's
petals.
in the middle, isn't
yes,
it? Yes.
When they are nearly open, they're pickable.
And from that point they'll stay longer.
Yes, and the more they mature, the longer they will keep.
Yeah.
We put them in a product called Flora Life.
Yes. Which actually you can buy that off the shelf.
Do we get it any cheaper now?
Yeah.
And that enhances the life of the bloom considerably. Yes.
All right.
More than double it most probably.
Oh, true.
Yeah. Some varieties don't keep as well as others, nevertheless.
And how would florists know?
Unfortunately, it's up to the grower, really. No, it's difficult to know.
Yeah. So really, you've got to know your growers too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And how do you pack them? Are they in water or what?
No, we pack them into large cartons with a plastic liner, which holds all the condensation and moisture in there, stops them drying out. We usually put ice packs in them to keep them cool. And they can last up to 4 days probably in the box without any water.
Yes, with chilling.
As long as they're chilled. And once the florist gets them, if there are any wilty ones, simply cutting the end of the stem and putting them in some fresh solution should revive them. They perk up quite quickly.
What's your theory? There's a common florist trick in the States where they actually submerge the hydrangea completely in water and to revive them or to really condition them well. No opinion on that?
Well, when we're reviving them in the shed, if they've been out of water, then just having the stem in the end in the water is sufficient.
And for how long?
Oh, they perk up within 20 minutes, I'd say.
Oh, true.
Yeah, you can see a huge difference.
Put them in a chiller.
Yeah.
Yes, and in preferably warmish water, and then into the chiller, and they suck up water very quickly.
Okay, and so as soon as they get them, they cut the ends, they condition it if they want to with the extra in there, and then into the chiller.
Yes.
Okay, and the chiller set at what degrees? Just normal
5.
5.
Yeah.
Okay.
mature form, as we call them in this country, antiques.
Which means old, doesn't it? Come on, it means old. It means they're old and we've left them on the bush, doesn't it?
That's right.
It does.
They're on the shelf.
Yeah. But they do.
They last for ages.
Yeah, well, because they'll eventually dry, won't they?
Yes, they will.
Yeah. So it's at the end of the season that those are the ones you buy if you want to put them in a vase with no water and leave them for the winter.
Yes.
Will they keep their colour?
Yes.
Out of sunlight, they'll keep their colour for 6 to 8 months probably.
Yeah. So it's wonderful for a winter arrangement, when especially if you're going through the northern hemisphere and you want a bit of colour.
Yes, the colour of course changes from this lovely vibrant likes of this red. They go into autumn colours, and some of them into green, some of them into crimsons, and a blue variety. Yes, a blue variety may well finish up in its mature form green. So
so it's quite exciting because you can go from now, which is admittedly late spring I suppose to say, and this vibrant lime green that will last 10 days with proper conditioning, right through until the very, very end of summer when they've become antiques. I love that word.
Yes.
Where they've become antiques,
I think
then
the
they'll last you all winter.
call them classic.
Yes. So let's go and have a look at some of these other varieties, because I know you've also been breeding.
Yes.
Tell us the story about.
Exciting.
Yes. Tell us the story about why you've had to breed them yourself in New Zealand.
Well, we felt that the European varieties are bred for European conditions, which are controlled environment houses, and we haven't got that here in New Zealand. Ours is all outdoor. So we've got to grow a hardier variety. And thus far, early stages yet, but we're pretty excited about it.
Yes,
really
it's a
good.
gorgeous pink. We'll go and have a look at this pink. Come on. Lead me on.
2008, I decided that I'd try and find out what seed looked like. Collected a little bit of seed and grew 12 seedlings. And of that 12, I've actually selected 4 that I think are worth continuing with to some degree. But this is the choice of them all, and it's a lovely, lovely pink.
Immediately when I saw it, I thought bridesmaid's bouquet.
It's
bridesmaid's
just so
bouquet,
feminine.
isn't it?
It really is beautiful.
And so that's early colour. Do you know yet how it's going to change colour?
A wee bit deeper pink eventually, and then it goes eventually to a green.
That's incredible.
Very, very quick.
And then behind you, of course, is this beautiful white.
It is lovely, isn't it?
Yes. And we've just seen the bridesmaid's bouquet, and here we've got immediately growing the brides with some white roses in there or white anthuriums. It's just the easiest, most stunning bouquet, and it's even got its own handle.
Yes.
What is the first and the second? Is there such a thing as in hydrangeas?
Yes, in hydrangeas for export we have 3 grades. We have sort of basically large, small, or large, medium and small, and you get the premium prices for the large heads. So anything up to 20 centimetres is called a large or a AAA, and generally the stem length has to be over 40 centimetres. Then the medium is between 10 and 20 centimetres head size, and then the small is anything under 10 centimetres.
And are those universal gradings worldwide?
I believe so, yeah.
So that a florist can then say, I want a AAA hydrangea, and will know that that's the size she's
getting a large.
And it's not just large head, it's also longer stemmed.
Yes.
All right. So if you're only using a floret for a buttonhole, you would go for
an A grade.
An A grade.
Which is, the small. And that'll be a lot cheaper, and you can chop those up. Just
But A grade doesn't mean it's bad or going rotten or half off. It just means it's smaller.
Yes.
Okay. So do you also have seconds?
Yes. Anything that is too short, or perhaps the head might be too loose and open, and it's liable to break off when it's put in the box. So we'll reject it because of that. A nice tight head like that, where all the florets are nice and close together.
Okay.
Whereas a loose one,
they're sort of floppy.
that one,
Oh, I see. They stick out.
uneven growth. These bits here are quite long.
It most probably
And
been caused through
lack of sunlight.
lack of sunlight.
And so it heads off in different directions.
Well, no, it doesn't get the light to give it strength. So
righto.
it elongates.
So if you shake it and it sort of wobbles around a lot,
it goes in the rubbish bin.
it goes in the rubbish, whereas that
It's
doesn't
lovely
hardly
and
moves.
So a florist in a flower market could actually do that.
Oh, yes.
And if it's shaking and it's just going blah, 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 just walk away and
Yes.
look for ones that are stiffer
Yep,
and
nice and
closer
firm. Yep.
and closer together. Go and look at the blue one. So here are these blues, and I cannot believe how intense that colour is. Why are they so blue when the other ones are so red?
It's the feed that we give them.
Yeah.
These ones are grown in the ground where they've got more acidic conditions, and we also fertilise them a few times a year to keep them looking nice and blue.
And then that blue won't fade?
No, if anything it'll get stronger.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
And does it help being under the shade cloth?
Yes, the shade's mostly there because they tend to get sunburnt, and you'll get brown tips on them. But having the shade there actually makes them grow taller as well, because they're trying to get up to the light.
And that's giving you the long
stem
stems.
length. Yeah.
And these ones behind here are purple. Is it a different variety
Yes,
or what?
completely different variety. We also grow this in bags as a pink. Comes out quite a nice deep pink.
Oh, so if they're in the ground because of your soil, they'll be purple.
Yes.
And if they're in the other shade house but they're in a bag, they'll be pink.
Yes.
The bottom line is somebody loves that. How are they going to track down your flowers if they're not in New Zealand? What's the signposts they can use to try and track it down?
We have a grower name which is East of Eden, but we actually go through a number of New Zealand exporters, so most of those are ones that we supply. So if they wanted to ask for East of Eden flowers, then yeah, any of the exporters should know where to get those from.
And you were talking about blooms as being...
New Zealand Bloom is one of the exporters we use.
And is it NZ Bloom or New Zealand Bloom?
NZ.
NZ Bloom. So they could look it up on the internet, NZ Bloom, and ask for East of Eden?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there anything else, any other advice that you would give a florist about hydrangeas?
It's good to recut the stem occasionally, particularly if you see them starting to wilt a wee bit. Just take it out of the solution and recut it and put it in clean solution.
Yeah.
Yes, that's quite important. It's not necessarily a throwaway if it starts to wilt. All the problem is that it's not taking up the water, and that may be bacteria. So you cut the end of the stem off and put it in even possibly Genola or some chlorine type product to kill the bacteria, and then put it back in solution, and it should actually take up again.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. We're going to have a wonderful time doing some designs with these and sharing with the world, because hydrangeas, I think, just are one of those base flowers that we've identified this year as being one of the top 9. So hey, thank you guys.
They're gorgeous.
Yes,
they
thank
really
you.
Are.
Thank you.
I many times pick one and get enthusiastic about them. They're so beautiful.
Yeah, they are. They're amazing. The closer you look, the more amazing they are, aren't they?
Yeah.
And have a good season.
Thank you.
Yes.
You need it.
Yeah. Well, here we are, back in the garden with these glorious hydrangeas that you just saw being picked. Aren't they amazing? And I want to introduce you to Robin Brown. Robin is from Auckland in New Zealand, and she has been part of the teaching program for flower arranging for quite some time. So Robin, tell us what you do.
I'm teaching at club level, mainly in Howick, but also in other suburbs in Auckland.
Okay, and how long have you been doing that? I know that I first met you when I was an intermediate flower arranger in the floral art world, and I actually came to some of your courses. So come on, are you going to admit how long you've been doing this?
Shall we say since my youngest was a preschooler.
Oh, hey, talk about wriggling out of things, eh? We will never know how old her youngest is now. So I'm going to leave you with Robin. She's going to do the first 3 designs using hydrangeas, and she's going to do her designs with these glorious blue and wonderful whites, and then I will come and I will do my designs with the red, so you can have a really good try at all the different sorts of hydrangeas colours that you can get in your part of the planet.
to do a floral design on a round container when either you haven't got access to the right size floral ring or you haven't got time to get to the florist wholesalers, take a block of floral foam and you cut it in half on the vertical. And then you cut it in half again. And this is a 45cm plate. And toothpick your corners so that it won't move. Any kind of foliages, as long as you've got a good mix of contrasts of texture, shape and form. And I'm starting with ivy. And you start by placing one on the very bottom of the foam and the next one comes up.
So you're going up, down, up, down, up, down all the way?
All the way around, yeah. I'm not bothering to fill in the centre because I've got a candle to go into it. Makes a very, very nice arrangement for a dinner party, because people can talk over it without having their view blocked by a massive foliage. And it doesn't take up that much room on the table either. Now the next layer is another change of texture, and these are a very pretty geranium leaf. Don't know the variety though. Looks like an oak leaf geranium.
So those are filling in the gaps around the top?
Yes. Change your angle occasionally, just to give movement into the design. Now at this stage, if you wish, and you want to do it for Christmas or a wedding, you can now start putting ribbon in. This is a very nice silver mesh. And you'll need your leaf pins.
Which you call mossing pins, U-shaped pins.
Yes, they get called all sorts of things, don't they? This is a particularly nice ribbon to work with, and it can be recycled.
And you didn't cut it off the reel first, so that really, really means that you don't waste a thing, do you?
No. Well, you're never quite sure how much you're going to need.
Mm.
And I pleat each time I add another leaf pin, just so that it will sit nicely. Right, again you add another change of texture. Now this is a particularly nice juniper. It's called Blue Mountain. And at this time of the year, which for us is early summer, it has these beautiful blue seed pods on it. These designs can can be done without any flowers at all if you wish, which is nice at Christmas time.
And once again, you're just poking them through to fill in a gap, but in quite a rhythmical way, aren't you?
Yes, in and out.
Yeah.
Very traditional, this style of designing.
And always beautiful.
Yes, they have a place. And a design like this can be done 3 or 4 days before Christmas, and then you don't have to worry about your flower arranging. You can just get on with organising the food and the family. You'll notice that all the pieces that I pick, I strip off the bottom leaves and cut it on a sharp point so that it's got plenty of root to take up, or end of the leaf to take up water. Right, the next thing that's going in, these are the berries off the Paris, and this was the white Paris called Silver Bells.
And are those the berries after it's flowered?
Yes, this flowered September, October.
Early spring.
Yes. It's got a magnificent perfume if ever you can get hold of the plant of it.
And doesn't that lime green just pop it, doesn't it? Brings it up.
Gives it real oomph.
Yeah. And some people that are looking at the DVD, Robin, they're not going to be able to find this very typical New Zealand foliage, but it's really just all about contrast, isn't it?
Contrast of texture, shape and form.
Yeah.
And colour as well.
So you're looking for a smooth...
You're looking for a flat, shiny leaf. You're looking for a textured leaf. You're looking for small broken forms. You're looking for subtle changes of colour, because I've gone here from blue-green to yellow-green. Or, if you wish, you can start bringing in your brighter coloured foliages like your copper beech and your Virginia creepers and things like that. These are beautiful.
Certainly not like we grow in the garden, are they?
No, we obviously aren't giving them enough to eat.
They're as effective as a rose, aren't they, or a peony?
Well, a peony, or a garden rose, not a commercial rose. And again, I'm moving around the design subtly from the inside to the outside, just to give it a bit of movement.
Beautiful wedding centerpieces for wedding table, dining tables, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Now this is a hurricane candlestick. And there it is. This design is in a ceramic trough, and I've got in here a whole block and almost 3/4 of another block. And I'm starting by, this is a design that's got European influences, and I'm starting by layering my ivy leaves on the side. Now what I do is I cut my ivy leaves very short and put them in at a 90-degree angle. And try when you're picking your plant material to get them all the same size if possible.
And why do you cut the stem short, Robin?
There's just enough stem to anchor it into the floral foam and to allow it to take up moisture. And if they won't sit flat for you, you can then add pearl-headed pins, which is also a decorative effect if you wish. These are just ordinary dressmaking pins that I bought from the haberdashers. Just repeat this all the way around. You can do it with any kind of leaves. but you want one that's a strong, eye-catching texture. By covering most of your container with ivy leaves, or any other kind of leaf you fancy, it means that you don't have to have a complementary colour in your container. You can use any colour container you've got, as long as it's the right shape and size. Right, the next thing to go in is these fabulous hydrangeas. And just move them backwards and forwards across your container when you're covering your foam. This is Euphorbia Williams eye. It's a lovely thing to use, but be aware that if you suffer from skin infections, that milk that's coming out of it now will give you a nasty rash. And it also, when it dries on your hands, it becomes quite sticky too. These are a type of Shasta daisy that grows in my garden, but that's how it grows, and it has a rather nice shape, form for putting into a design. So I'm putting one right down in very deep, and then I'm lifting the other one above it, and then I'll put a third one in and make that higher still.
And a wonderful complementary colour scheme, isn't it?
Yes.
And you could use, once again, any round form.
Yes, you could use those lovely anemone chrysanthemums in it. I think the yellow is bringing this to life. Just put a little bit more of the blue in. Lovely bluey mauve to help accentuate the pattern that I've got flowing through the design. So it's coming that way, then it's coming round here and going that way again. Now these are the seed pods from the nigella.
Which are almost better than the flowers, aren't they?
They are. The flowers they're so pretty, but they don't last. Whereas this, there's a lovely texture to these, and also such a pretty lime green colour with the hint of mauve in it.
You could do a line of these, couldn't you, along a table?
You could. Or you could use one of those extra long commercial troughs.
And just keep going for as long as you need to keep going.
Yeah, be really nice for a wedding table.
Edge of a stage.
Yes. Right. Now for another change of texture, just to give it that little bit of oomph, is the kangaroo paw. Now this grows in my garden, but I do believe it's available commercially overseas. And it lasts in the garden starts to flower about the end of spring, and I'll have this in my garden right through till about early March.
Which is the end of summer.
End of summer. And then it will dry off, and the stalks go black, and they're brilliant for line design work. And this is the lime green one, but you can get a lovely red and green one. And there's another one that has navy blue in it.
Beautiful.
Here we are. I think that's it. This is a very beautiful one-off Margaret Day container, and it was one of the best buys I've ever had because it can be used in 2 parts. Now, if you haven't got access to something similar in shape, the lovely, very modern glass cake plates that are available at the moment make an extremely good substitute. Now, I'm using Oasis prongs or frogs or whatever you buy them as, and I'm using 3. I'm using Blue Tack, which is a product that I buy in the local supermarket. It's not as good as Oasis Fix, but I don't want to damage the surface on my container.
And Blue Tack's, I think, a commercial name.
It's a commercial name,
but
for
it's all around the world.
Yeah, it's a product similar to Plasticine or any one of those products that you can buy. And this is 2/3 of a block of floral foam, and I've cut it just over half. And that's giving me good stability. My first placement will be puka leaves. Now these are a New Zealand native, Myrtus and Clear-Eye, and they are superb for all sorts of modern work. Used that way, rolled, pleated, fluted, you name it, you can do it with them. They're very robust and they last extremely well in foam. Now to wire a leaf, I'm using a 26 gauge wire, and I take it up either side of the spine, pull it down, and then to get it to do what I want it to do, I then pull the other wire, so I get it the angle I want it. And then round 3 times. And then take it down the stem a little bit further and round 3 times again. And that way you have total control over your leaf. There we are. Now these are an ivy leaf that grow in my garden, and they don't get a lot of sun, hence this enormous size. But they are so useful for modern textural work. I don't know where I got it from, I can't remember, but it was probably from somebody who had a very old garden. And I'm just layering them. Now the next placement will be my succulents. Now, just a toothpick up the stalk, put it into your floral foam, and then when you design the eyes, you take them out, take the toothpick out and pop them back on the surface of your garden, and it will reroot for you. Right, now these are the leaves of the Watsonia. And I particularly like them when you want something that flows, because you can manipulate them just slowly over your fingers until it holds the angle you want, and then you cut them on a point. You can also get them to give you a real curl by when you first pick them, you start at this end and you roll it, and then you put clothes pegs on it, and then 24 hours later they'll curl like that for you. And all leaves grow to the left and the right on the one plant. When you go out and you look, you'll see some leaves growing that way and some leaves growing that way, and depending on how you want them in your design, you've got to have them growing in the right direction. Now this also grows in my garden. It's Asparagus secitans plumosa, and it is a lovely thing to grow, but you have to have the right climate. It won't grow where the winter's too cold. Mine grows to about 10 feet. I know if you want to use it in the UK, you've got to order it in from Holland. And these are the leaves of the Japanese anemone. And these are also a lovely texture, and if you condition them properly, they will last and foam. I picked these in the early morning, and I put them the leaf doesn't go into water, only the stem. Put it into water up to about there and leave it there until I'm ready for it. These fabulous hydrangeas. The size of them. That would be a head of a hydrangea in my garden. Yeah. What I'd like to use in this is these homemade balls. Now they're polystyrene balls, and I have covered them with ripped pieces of a Japanese handmade paper. And as you can see, the variation in colour on once it's glued on, this is the remnants of the sheet, but it went from this lovely, lovely, very dark sea green to this pale blue across the sheet of paper.
And what sort of glue did you use, Robin?
I used a mixture of PVA and water, and I put it on with a paintbrush, and I ripped it. You don't cut it, you rip it into strips, and then you just layer it as you go. Now, depending on the climatic conditions, it can take a good day or more to dry. Then over the top of that, I've got anti-black knitting ribbon, which I bought from a wool shop, and then over that again I've put a layer of bullion wire. And I'm really quite pleased with them. They're a copy of an Amari ball, which you can make with embroidery thread. Now, I got the handmade paper at a trade aid shop. We've got a haberdashery chain in Australia and New Zealand that sell all supplies that you need for craft. And I'm sure there'll be something similar in other countries. The Americans have got this, on the west coast, have got this fabulous chain called Michael's. Now this is small pieces of kiwi fruit vine, which I've had for quite some time. At the moment, you're not allowed to move throughout New Zealand with kiwi fruit vine because they've had an outbreak of a disease that's wrecking the orchards.
So you've just put 2 skewers on the end of it?
I've got 2 skewers wired and taped.
Yeah.
And I want extension and repetition to come this way. I might put this hydrangea leaf in because it is such a beautiful leaf. And again, on a very sharp point to go into your phone. You just put your bullion wire onto your balls by anchoring them with a pin, little tiny dressmaking pin. You just take your bullion wire and you wind it round your pin 3 times. Then you just go into the base of the ball and you just wind it on like a ball of wool. Right, there is the completed ball with the bullion wire on it. You don't need a lot, it's just to give it a little bit of glitter. But if you were wanting to make it really elaborate, you can use sequins with sequin pins, you could put extra pearls on it, you could do whatever you fancied. And there it is complete.
Well, Robin, that is amazing. Thank you so much for showing us what to do. And haven't those hydrangeas just brought everything to life?
Yeah.
And really, it's totally convinced me that if you want huge hydrangeas, buy them from a grower.
No, feed them. Feed them and
Water them and lots of shade. Robin's blue hydrangeas. I just couldn't resist them for this design. I'm just going to show you the difference. Both of these are from that wonderful grower. Can you see how these florets are quite big and these florets are quite small? I've chosen the small ones because they're going to be in scale with my design, so not going to use that. When you are looking for hydrangeas to use, be aware of the size of the florets for the scale of your design. And therefore, having decided on blues, I had to change my colour scheme for some of the other textures I'm going to use, as I was now going to be using the cooler side of the colour wheel, all of the purples, blue purples. So I have now got some Alstroemerias with a purple tinge in them, some New Zealand Hebe, which have also got the purple tinge in them, and a few more of those lovely Nigella buds. Well, if you want to check and see if it's going to work, you just put them together like this, and if you say yes, that's a lovely colour scheme, you know that this design is going to work for you. Obviously, if you are going to use pink or white, you do the same thing. You're going to need a candle holder. Now, this design is based on the one that you can see in the companion magazine on hydrangeas, where the American Russian florist used a candlestick and one column of hydrangeas. But what I want to do is show you how you can adapt this design to any candlestick you've got. The key to the candlestick is that it has to be designed so it holds the little tea lights, so that you get this little dish which is going to hold your floral foam. So any candlestick that has that ability, you're away. I've also used floral foam in a block here, and all I've done is punched the shape out, pushed it down and back out again. I've got 6 of them there, and I've got 7 shapes. I'm going to use 6 shapes for the top and 1 shape for down the base of it. And with that, I'm now simply going to cut those shapes out. So there's my first one, and I go on the outside of that circle, and by going on the outside of that circle, I know that the floral foam is going to overhang what's going to go into that little dish there. So round I go, trim it off like this. So I've got myself a column, and then use your hand to smooth it all down. You don't want these sharp edges because they do influence your design. In it goes over the top, and there you have your first little column ready to have your plant material. And obviously I'm just going to do that again and again and again until I've done them all. Then we now have the one for the base, and once again you see I've got the circle, but I've kept that base flat. I'll just cut that little piece off there. I've kept that piece flat, so when this is in its position it's going to be in, it's going to go like that. Alright, we'll get to that piece later. And up here you can see the 6 on the main candlestick. And now for the fun part. We're going to completely cover each one of these with florets of this beautiful hydrangea. And here you can see how you cut your floret depending on the size you want it. As you can see, the hydrangeas grow with lots of those little branches. So if I cut it there, I'm going to end up with something that big. If I cut it further down, I'll end up with more on it. So that's about the size I want, because all we're going to do is pop them in. Keep them quite short stemmed. The reason you want them short stemmed is because they've got to have room for all of the stems. We're putting a lot of stems in here. And we completely cover each one of these little candlesticks with these lovely florets. Right round, and also the underneath. And front and back. Now you can see what's going to happen. I'll just do a little bit on this one so you can. When I do exactly the same on this one, it's going to make this all tie in right the way along there. So you're going to end up with this band of hydrangea in a line like this, and that's going to accentuate the stand. So when you're looking for your candlestick, also be aware of what's happening on the stand itself, because that's going to be quite visual part of it. So you've got the idea. Along we're going to go and fill front, back, bottom and top all with hydrangeas. When I've done it, we'll come back. Okay, and so we're just smoothing it off, filling it up, checking from the front and seeing where there's little dips and things like that in it that need to be filled up, so that you end up with this lovely, even, completely covered with hydrangea both sides. Now that really looks quite cool on its own right, doesn't it? I have got one little bit left for the bottom piece. It's taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's taken 6 heads of hydrangea, those big commercial heads. It's very quick though. That probably took me about 6 or 7 minutes. You just motor for it and you go and you've got it. So now we're going to add the accents. Little pieces in here that are just going to lift it, add some extra textures and things. Putting them in 1s, in 2s, 3s and 5s, and really quite randomly, if I of course can find the fluorophane, there it is. And that's simply introducing a new texture, a little bit of that pale green. We're working both sides at once here, because if this is going to be viewed from all round, for example like a coffee table, you want to make sure that you've got the interesting things on both sides. Now notice that I am pushing them right in. This is the French way of style of designing, where everything is quite flat. You don't have some up and some down, you simply have them grouped for the textures. It's a bit hard to find that foam, but you know it's in there. And lime green is a wonderful, wonderful thing to lift any arrangement. I think I must have said that so many times now. Quite random. This isn't, I'm not making a pattern here. Parting the florets, having another look, finding a bit of foam, and in they go. This design is going to last a long time. You heard the grower say how long their hydrangea is going to last. Well, these seed pods will stay like that for ages too. This is the New Zealand Hebe. It's quite obliging. It comes in little groupings already. Nice sturdy stem on it. Easily pushed into the floral foam. And you've got an interesting instant group. Clean off all of the foliage. Not a lot of foliage used in these modern designs. Into it. Same on the other side. Quite subtle, but just enough to give it some different interest. Can you see how it's just giving it a little bit more dimension? This, believe it or not, is a slightly different colour. It's got a little bit more of the red in it, more of the red violet. And so that just adds the same form, but a tiny little bit of a colour contrast. Being quite random in my placements here. Not creating a pattern, that could be the worst thing to do. You don't want to spot it. You noticed I have abandoned the Alstroemeria that I said I was going to use. And the reason I've done that is because those stems were so soft. It was, they weren't going to last. Alright, so there's the look we have on there. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of the kangaroo paw that you saw Robin using, and for the same reason that she's using it. It's a different form, it's tiny and interesting, and it's that lovely lime green. So I'm putting some of that in, always close. There's a tiny, tiny little flower on it. A surprising little find here, with a wee spot of yellow. And then there you have your main arrangement, very French styled, that could be placed coffee table, side table, the signing table for a wedding. And I'm just going to show you now how to do the little piece to put at the base to bring the arrangement down to the bottom. So you remember the little piece that we had, and I said we're going to use it for the base. The first thing we have to do is put it into what we call here glad wrap. You possibly know it as cling film. And we simply wrap the ends. The reason we do this is because this is going to go perhaps on a reception desk or somewhere like that, and you don't really want it to mark the desk. So that's keeping the water in, and yet the floral foam can be very, very wet. We're going to do exactly the same thing again. We're going to base it with the florets. Use the skewer to put in the florets, the skewer to go through the cling film, sides and tops. Don't want any cling film showing whatsoever. This last floret is slightly different colour, which means you can accentuate that if you want by putting it at the front, or you can minimise it by putting it in the back. Under certain lights you wouldn't even know. Okay, so we've now got this little folly, I'm going to call it, and we're going to unite it with the top. So once again we're going to use the same components that we used before. I'm going to use the hebe. It's got such a strong stem, it will go through that foam without needing the skewer. This is unity. This is bringing the design down to the base. Actually, that's a really, really cool tiny little table design that you could use really just in the middle of any wedding table, couldn't you? Just in proportion to whatever you're doing. A little bit more of the lime green. Kangaroo paw. Great way to use up the scraps, this too, by the way. The world's quickest little posy that is a tiny, tiny wee arrangement on its own, but also, as you can see here, when it goes with the main design, it's brought it down to the base. You've still got that lovely show of that lovely ironwork on the candlestick, and you've got yourself a modern design heavily influenced by how the French arrange flowers. Have a go. Hydrangeas, they really are wonderful and make life very, very easy for covering up floral foam in a beautiful way. So now I'm going to show you how to make a bouquet with a hydrangea. If you just hold a big bloom like this, you can see it's already the size for a beautiful bouquet. What you're looking for is one with a straight stem. Crooked stem like this, it's not going to work, so use that for another design. If you haven't been lucky enough to find hydrangeas of this quality, that you can use smaller ones This is Roger's favourite one, his new beauty, and you can actually put them together like this to create the same effect with 3 of them. Beautiful for a bridesmaid, wouldn't that be? But I can do it with 1, so we won't be using those ones either. You're also going to have to prepare your plant material. The first thing we've got is the buttoned carnations, and you cut them off with the smaller stalkers, and you have to take off all of the leaves. We have no leaves in this bouquet at all, and that has to be done with all of the button carnations. The roses will come with leaves on and prickles, so you roll off the leaves, and for the prickles, if you haven't got a rose stripper, you put your thumb on the thorn and you push it or pull it. That one wanted to be pulled, and off it will come. Pop the thorns in your scrap bucket so you don't stand on them. Alright, so down to there, pull it and it will just pop off. So you have to do that with your roses. The alstroemerias will come with all their leaves on. That crooked stem won't matter because we can cut it there. And take all of the leaves off as well. And when you've prepared all your plant material, you need to lay it out so it's going to be easy to find and take hold of when you're actually making your bouquet. You're also going to need a piece of raffia or tying twine, some ribbon, some florist tape and some parafilm, and that's going to be all you need for this bouquet. So I will go and prepare the plant material and then we'll start the bouquet. There we are, all done. Now the roses, I'm just going to show you, they've all been dethorned. But can you see how that one, the outside leaves, are really quite floppy? This normally happens if you're buying what I call supermarket quality roses. They're not the great big, beautiful, expensive ones. And you can see, they get quite floppy on the outside there. These have been conditioned for 24 hours in water and they're still doing it. So just take those outside leaves off. If this is for a wedding, rather than a demonstration from you, buy the best quality roses you can get so that that sort of thing doesn't happen. You know, you get what you pay for. Okay, so we start with the hydrangea head. If you look in the back here, it's got a natural way of sitting. You can see it in my hand here. If somebody was holding it like here, it would be flopping downwards. So if I'm trying to force it upwards that way, it's not going to be happy. So I'm going to do my design with the hydrangea head down this way. It also creates quite a natural handle, which is of course a coincidence. So I'm going to hold it this way. The first thing I'm going to put in is the alstroemerias, and the last thing I'm going to do is put in the roses. And you just imagine that this is a already made armature, and you're going to just pop things through. So you're going to be so surprised how easy it is. I'm going through the hydrangea and bringing that right the way down so it sits in like this, and there's my first one done. Listen, I know the colour scheme is quite severe, but that's because we're wanting some contrast in this when we add the other things. We're not going to use many of them. Just spreading them out is once again pushing them through so they're just popping out from the hydrangeas. Turn it round and add some more through like this, keeping them fairly low in there. And down through. Probably won't need all of these, I can always add more later. And down through. Already we have got a natural spiral as if you were doing a spiral bouquet, and it's because the hydrangea, look at that, the hydrangea stems are holding everything in place without me having to worry about gripping it. If you were a new beginning wedding florist and you really want to do a good job, give yourself a wee bit of a lift with these hydrangeas using it this way, because look at that, you're not having to worry about them all being in place like that. Okay, then we're going to add the alstroemeria, and once again this one's got a bit of a lean on it, so down we go through the middle, here it comes, and push it right down. So now we've got the chrysanthemum underneath that, but look how it's bringing up the green in that Alstomerias stamen and giving it that life. We turn it round and we put another one, and because it's going to go this way, I'm putting it in this way. And pull it down and it's in. Do another one here. The stem's going that way, so then I go that way. Through the hydrangea. Pull it down so it's tight in there. Can you just see? It's also, if you're a beginner, it's also already you've got that round posy shape, and really, look, it's just holding it there. It's such a magical way of doing it. Down it goes. Isn't that just looking divine already? And that's taken 2.2 seconds to do it. Absolutely beautiful. Remember, you want to also put some through in this area here. So you can just lay them so they go underneath and in there. Round we go. Use the hydrangeas to hold them in place. Okay, now the roses, and you might only want 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 roses. This is getting very full, and you can see we used hardly any flowers. Down it goes. Can you believe how easy this is? Wonderful thing. If you're just beginning, it's going to give you the confidence. Of course, the key, like everything, is selecting your plant material, things that look good together, and going, wow. If obviously you've not got a wedding coming up, we don't all have weddings coming up, or we're not wedding florists, this also is just beautiful, tied off and put in a vase. There's this lovely, lovely posy arrangement. I need a little bit of green there, because see we've got green through here, but there's sort of a gap here. At this point I'm working both inside and outside the base of the hydrangea. And there it is. We'll finish it off, but look at that. The most beautiful little wedding bouquet that doesn't take long, that doesn't have to be expensive to make or expensive to sell. So now we have the raffia. Loop the raffia in half. Any binding twine will do. Make the loop. Go around and loop it off. Pull it tight. Split. Turn it this way. And tie a knot. Cut the knot off. This is when you're going to make your decision. Is your handle going to be thick and down to there, or are you going to have it so they see the stems? I'm going to do mine so it's got a little bit of a stem there and then out, so I'm going to trim the stems at this point here. Bridal bouquet is normally 1.5 hands high, so that's the hand, and then that would be too long, so we're going to cut it about here. Into the bucket. Then we're going to use parafilm. This is it's not sticky. And in this sort of heat that we're working in today, it stretches really, really easy and it tidies things up. So you start here and go around. You just stretch it off. Squeeze it and it will hold together like that. Right, now for the ribbon. ribbon that obviously matches or contrasts with it. So you start with a long piece left, and you're going round, so that long piece is down there. This is chiffon. Any ribbon that you've got is appropriate, matching perhaps the bridesmaid's outfit with fabric, and round. The more round you go, the more it will hide that parafilm that's really holding it all together. Okay, when you get to there, take the one that you left behind, tie a bow, and for some reason I'm doing it left-handed even though I'm right-handed, that's strange. And a bow. Any bouquet. I'm actually going to take this one up to our neighbours, another set of new neighbours, to say welcome to the area, and they'll be able to put that into a vase as some flowers from their neighbour. Alright, so there it is, a really simple way of making a bouquet, particular if you are a beginner florist but you want it to look lovely. The key is selecting your contrasting colours and having a fabulous head of hydrangea. Alrighty, do have a go, it's really fun. Now this last design we're going to do a bit of time travel. We're going to start in the past and go forward to the future, because I'm going to show you how to use hydrangeas as a pressed flower. You're going to have to start with the part of your local paper that nobody reads. In this case for us it's the home section. And newsprint paper, newsprint is better because it will absorb the moisture. And I've picked the 3 hydrangeas, this amazing variegated one, which to me is Harlequin, with this pink and red, and then I've got the red hydrangea and of course Roger's favourite pink hydrangea there, and we're just going to press them. To do it as simple, very short stem, if really any stem, because when we do use them with our time travel, we are going to glue them, and put it down so it will sit flat onto your paper. Now the more of these you press, the bigger area you're going to be able to cover when you glue them onto the form for the design. So even though it might take you half an hour to go clip, 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 do be persistent and do heaps of them, because it gives you so much more variety of what you can do with them. Then turn about 3 pages, and as you turn the page and put them down, make sure as you're going down that they're all pressing flat and not touching each other as they go down, and then do it all over again there on the next one. So you should be able to get 3 or 4 pages filled with them on each one of these sections. Okay, we now imagine we've got 6 full, and this is when your coffee table books really come in handy, because you want heavy. Heavier they are, the flatter they're going to be, which is what you want. And just leave that somewhere for 2 weeks. The other thing you can do is put them under a mattress if you've got a very heavy mattress, so every night when you go to bed and sleep you also help impress them. Okay, so a bit of time travel for 2 weeks time. It's been 2 weeks, so now we'll do the big reveal and see what's happened with these hydrangeas. Remember, they are spring hydrangeas. Ideal time to press these sort of things is midsummer, when they're much drier. So off come the books, and let's have a look in here. So you can see the white ones have gone quite brown, The great big pink ones have stayed fine. The blue one has gone brown, and the pale pink ones. Experiment with your hydrangeas that you've got available to see what colour is going to do better and what time of the year is going to do better. The other thing I noticed is the newspaper got very you and of course as soon as it gets wet where the water's coming out of the plants, it could go mouldy, so make sure that you keep looking at them and checking that that newspaper's staying dry. Okay, so if you've got yourself a large collection of pressed leaves, you can use them to cover absolutely anything. I'm going to put just a tiny amount of glue on these ones here, and they're just going to decorate my vase. The vases I've got are two little tiny ones for this design. Any two vases will do exactly the same. I've picked that colour because I'm going to be using the blue hydrangeas, and I've also got colours to match that colour. Spray paint them any colour that's going to suit you. First thing we do is select the nice ones and put tiny piece of glue on the back. And again, I actually like this blue and brown. I think it's really quite attractive. Turn it on the back. Remember, this is just a little highlight to go onto your vase. Hold it down, and then the smaller one. That's all you need. And repeat it on this one. So these are two containers. We only have to wait a couple of seconds and they'll be done. If you like this idea, have an experiment. When we were at the Philadelphia Flower Show, we saw some very talented ladies who used pressed hydrangeas to cover shoes. They were the most astonishing pieces of artwork. So that is a very basic concept for you to play with. We've got blue hydrangeas. These aren't from the grower, these are actually out of the garden. You can tell they're much smaller. Calla lilies, also known as xanthodecia, some bear grass, and as a contrast some lavender, and lime green of course always works with the little button chrysanthemums. Also we'll need some toothpicks or skewers, whichever one you find handy. This will help you put the calla lilies into the container. It's going to be a crossed arrangement, which means one's going to go to this side, then one's going to go to that side. So if you're planning to move it, take it somewhere, pop it on a base so you can just pick the base up. So first thing we do is fill it with floral foam. Unusual way I have cut the floral foam, I've cut it on an angle through there, and the reason I've done that is because the containers are actually smaller at the base than they are at the top. And that way I can get two out of the one base. So we start by popping it in. For this design you don't need it all coming out of the top like that, so this piece here comes off. Okay, so I've cut it down to there, and then we smooth the edges out, and there's actually no need to fill in those gaps. Because of the nature of hydrangea, I could put a floret in there and it will completely cover that end up, which is marvellous because really hydrangeas are wonderful for covering up floral foam without having to have acres of floral foam to do it. Alright, so I'm going to do the same on that one. If you keep your calla lilies out of water for an hour or two before you start this design, they are going to be more flexible for you. They actually bend far easier if you have them out of the design, if you have them out of water. So we've got two different sorts of hydrangea from two different parts of the garden. You can see one's quite purple, one's less so, and almost blue there. So we're going to mix them up a bit and cover this whole thing with the hydrangeas. So here we go, just the floret. Put your hand down the base here and just push it in. Because that one is different, I'm going to put it in lots of different places, and this is going to give me the variety of colour through the basing, which is what this is. Go for the darker, deeper one. See the difference? Immediately gives you that nice Pinterest. Do this with any of the colours. So there you can see it, just all these beautiful tints, tones and shades of that red, violet and violet. Just beautiful. Now we've got, just remember I said we needed some contrast here, so we're just going to put in a tiny bit of lime green quite deep down into the arrangement. Don't need much of it, just enough to go, oh look at that. So I've got a little bit of green coming through here, and then it goes, pops over to there and around, and so it's just giving it yourself an eye path as you're going through. Quite a subtle one, but an eye path all the same. Now we take our longest colour, and it's going to be going over the top like this. So it needs to be cut about here. And this is where your skewers come in. Skewers or toothpicks. Pop them in the end, and that will guide the colour into the foam. As long as this piece of it is actually touching the foam, it will still absorb the water. And pop it in, and this will of course determine how far apart your arrangements are going to be. So there's the first one to there, so it's just floating on the top. We take the second longest one, which is this one. Another skewer on the end of it. Upwards or downwards. Can you see the difference? That's the way I want it to go. So we find the foam and we push it in there. And this is the crossover we're talking about. You do one side, then you do the other side. So you're now connecting the two pieces. We don't want them in a line like this, so this one will be going shorter again. Very simple arrangement, this one. Very effective. In goes the skewer, we don't need it that long. And back we go. This way we're going, aren't we? So in we go and bend it down. Between those two and slightly further down. And into the foam. This way or this way. Up to you, I think I'm going to put it this way. Working in odd numbers, 3s, 5s. And there are the 5. Now I've also got 2 that almost match the colour of the container. So when I put these in, they're not only going to provide a contrast, they're also going to bring the colour of the container up through there. And it goes. I'm going to use this quite short stem, I want it fairly low, just to pop in very, very tightly. Very, very tightly into there. Adding a contrast to that base, filling up any gaps. If you had long enough pieces of hydrangeas of lavender, you could put them this way and that way. But I like that unfussy look. What am I looking for? I'm looking for interesting little places where there's not much happening, so that the eye is just going, Oh yes, I can see a stem, and oh look, that's interesting. Almost exactly the same form as the hydrangea, but a slightly different colour. So the contrast isn't huge, but it is there. And the other wonderful thing, of course, is the lavender has the most beautiful smell, which means you mightn't want to put this on your dining room table, but it'd be lovely on a coffee table. Right, and we finish off with some bear grass across the top. Bear grass, steel grass, any reed at all that you've got that's available to you that you can use that has a lovely bend in it. And what this does is shelter the plant. It also gives the arrangement, it also gives it more height, and therefore it takes up more space. And when you push them in on an angle, because we want them to float above and around the colours that way. It's almost a symmetrical design, this one. Anyway, there it is. Roger, I have never seen a hydrangea with frills.
Well, there are some with frills, but that's a particularly nice one. It's got great colour. It's very, very feminine.
And is it one of your specials?
It's one of my seedlings, yes.
And you haven't got a name for it yet?
I haven't got a name for it.
Do you want a
but
suggestion?
I think it's, well, thank you.
It could be called Floral Design Magazine.
Could it? Well, it'd be ideal, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.